Hello everybody and welcome to Journal Auto YouTube channel. My name is Alex and today I will compare the Mitsubishi Colt with the Volkswagen Fox. Some of you might say that these cars are from different classes, and this is theoretically true, but practically it's not that true. Of course, the Volkswagen Fox, it's officially part of the A segment in Europe, and the Colt, it's part of the B segment in Europe. Just that the Fox, it's quite big for the A segment. Just keep in mind that, for example, the Toyota Aygo and its French siblings are around 3.4 meters long in this class. Other example, the Renault Twingo, another rival of this car, it's 3.6 meters long. And this one is 3.83 meters long, which is close to the B segment. So I think there are B segment cars having this length, while the Fox, it's in the A segment. In the same time, in its period, there was also the Polo made, the B segment model of Volkswagen. And in that time, there was the fourth generation, which was 3.9 meters long and 3.92 on the facelift. And this is 3.83. So the difference is very small between the A and the B segment for Volkswagen. On the other hand, the Colt, this facelift model, it's 3.94 meters long. And this means that between these cars, there is only 11 centimeters difference in length. While, for example, in the C segment, between the Opel Astra J and Golf, the 6th generation, for example, there is 17 centimeters difference in length, while they are in the same class. So I have all the reasons to compare them, considering that their length is quite similar. For example, the pre-facelift Colt was only 3.87 meters long, so only 4 centimeters longer than the Fox. So we will have this comparison. Now I will explain to you shortly how these cars will be rated. My rating has a total of 100 points. The rating is split into 5 big categories, 5 main categories, each of 20 points. And in the same time, each of these category has 4 subcategories, each of 4 points. I will not explain to you which are the subcategories now, because you will find out while I am testing these cars. But the main category are the interior of the car in the front, the interior in the back, the trunk, the engine, and how it drives. I will not rate these cars for how they look, because this is a subjective matter. So, in my opinion, when you buy a car, the most important thing is the engine, how it drives, and how do you feel inside. Otherwise, how it looks, the color, and other details are subjective. So these 4 main categories are objective, and that's why I will compare these cars in an objective manner. Here we have a Volkswagen Fox that was made in 2008. This has a 1.4 petrol engine that develops 75 horsepower. It's a quite rare engine in the Fox, because many customers chose the 1.2 petrol engine with 55 horsepower. This car was made in Brazil, even if it's a German car. While this one, if it's a Japanese car, it was made in the Netherlands. This is made in 2010, and it has a 1.3 petrol engine also, but with 95 horsepower. The Fox was sold in Europe between 2005 and 2011, while the Colt was sold between 2004 and 2012. So these cars were made in the same period, just that the Colt was produced longer in Europe, while this facelift was launched in 2008. The Fox was launched in Brazil 2000 earlier than in Europe, in 2003, and it's still being produced. I guess now in 2021 it will be retired from the market. The main disadvantage of this Fox, so it will start from the beginning with a disadvantage, is that this car is only 3 doors. Because in Europe it was sold only as a 3-door car, unfortunately, but in Brazil there was also a 5-door version. At that time in Europe there were being sold a lot of 3-door cars, but nowadays people do not want them anymore. I would have liked for this Fox to have 5 doors. Sadly, it doesn't have in Europe. It will have this disadvantage from the beginning, but we will see how it will behave in this test. So we are starting with the first category, the interior in the front. Here is my table list, and I will point the car. So we will start with practicality. Let's see, how does the Colt behave in terms of practicality. So in the door here we have a quite big door bin. So it looks quite well, it's quite big, that's nice. What do we still have here? Two cup holders, another two spaces, storage spaces here, and a big one here. I think you can put a wallet there, and a storage space here for your phone, for example, and another one here on the dash. There is another storage space here that is quite big, and for the rear passengers, but we will talk that later, but you can use this for the front passenger too, another cup holder here. Let's see, the glove box, it's quite big. You have two rooms in the glove box. There is a main one here, and you have some space for your coins, and another part back there. So it's a two-room glove box that looks quite nice. So it's a quite practical car. I think I will give it 4 out of 5. Now we will test the quality of the materials. So the plastic, it's quite hard but solid on the dashboard. It's hard everywhere, but it's solid. And for example, the build quality is quite good. It doesn't wobble. Look at the center console. If I move it, it doesn't wobble. But on the doors, there is also hard plastic, and sadly, this is something where Mitsubishi on the pre-facelift model had better quality materials here. And this one, it's quite flimsy. Here on the lower side of the door, it's better, but here it's quite flimsy. Otherwise, the build quality, it's quite good. There are no rattling and noises inside. You feel quite good here, but because the materials are good but not great, so it will get 3 out of 5. Let's now talk about the interior space. And for example, remember that when we are testing these cars and, for example, rating them, if a car gets, for example, a 5 out of 5 rating at interior space, it will get it thinking of this class, for example. Yes, we do not compare it with bigger cars, but otherwise, you have a lot of room here. It's a very spacious car, even if it's only 3.94 meters long. The windows are very big, and it feels here very airy. And that is why it will get a maximum 5 out of 5, a maximum for this class. And now let's talk ergonomy. It's very easy to get to the windows switchers here, buttons to open them. It's very easy. For example, imagine that you are driving the car. It's very easy to access the climate control. It's very easy to access the music. It's very easy to access everything in this car. So it's very ergonomic, and that is why it will get again 5 out of 5. We are now in the Fox, in the interior, in the front, and first we will discuss practicality. So here the door bins are split in two. Maybe we should look here on the passenger. We have here a separate space for the bottles, and they are very big. You can fit in there bottles as big as 1.5 liters, but the pockets are quite small. Also small is the glove box. So you can see there are quite some things here, but here it ends. That is the glove box. So very, very small. Otherwise, you have here, you can put some things here. So this is quite nice. You can also, because here the dashboard is flat, you can put a lot of things here, but while you are driving the car, they can go all over the place. And you have two cup holders here and a little storage space here. And the cherry on the cake, you have here another big storage space. You can put a lot of things, especially your papers, but otherwise not too much, so it will get a 3 out of 5. In terms of the quality of the materials, the dashboard, hard plastic absolutely everywhere, because this should have been a cheap car. Hard plastic here again on the door, but it's quite solid everywhere. Even if it's hard, it's very solid, at least that. Let's see. The center console, it's not that flimsy, but it's a little more flimsy than in the Colt. But otherwise, the quality is better. This one, it's a little bit flimsy than in the Colt, but in the same time, the plastic, it's more solid on the doors than in the Colt, so it will get the same 3 out of 5. In terms of interior space, even if this is officially an A-segment car, it's quite roomy. So you have a quite big windscreen, huge windows here for the driver, and it feels very airy here. It feels very nice. So in terms here of interior space, it will get 4 out of 5. In terms of ergonomy, you know that usually Volkswagen is a champion in this category because everywhere, everything is well placed. For example, the buttons to open the windows are the same, very easy to access. Even the button to move the mirrors electrically, here it's very easy to access. Everything here it's easy to access. Even the climate control is easy to access. Just that compared to Colt, the audio system, it's not that easy to access because it's quite down, and being quite down, if you want to change the music, you have to look down. So it will get only 4 out of 5 in terms of ergonomy. We now go to the second category, the interior space in the back, and we are starting with the practicality, which it's not much here. For example, there are no door pockets in the back of the seats. You have only this cup holder here for the passengers. There is no armrest here in the middle, and the worst thing, there are no door bins in the back. So in terms of practicality in the back, it gets 1 out of 5. Now, in terms of the quality of the materials in the back, it's quite the same as in the front. There is the same plastic here, which is a little bit flimsy, but otherwise it seems that it's resisting quite well. And here it's also hard plastic, but again, it feels quite solid. And as in the front, there are no rattlings or weird noises here in the back, so it will get 3 out of 5. But in terms of roominess, this is a great car for how short it is. For example, remember that I am 1.82 meters tall. In England, this is 6 feet. Yes, the front seat, it's pushed to the back in order to be comfortable for me. And look, I still have plenty of room for my knees, considering how short is the car. And I have here a measuring unit to see it, how much we have. From my knees to the back of the car, the back of the seat, I still have 8 centimeters. Also, the windows are quite big, and because the car is tall, I have a lot of room for my head also. And because the central tunnel is quite low, 3 people can sit here quite comfortable on short distances, because the car is not very wide, so you can fit in here 3 people, but not on longer roads. However, considering how short this car is, how small it is, and look how much room it has, that is why on here on the roominess in the back, it will get 5 out of 5. The last thing here in the back in the back of this car, it's how you sit on the bench. And considering how tall I am sitting quite well, and this bench is quite comfortable. It's quite nice. I think you can have here 2-3 hours of a longer road without any problems. I don't know if other cars in this class are better, but I'll give it here a 4 out of 5. Now we are going in the back of the Fox, and sadly, as I said, this is a 3-door car, not with 5-door like in Brazil. So in order to get in, you have to push the front seat. But as you see, it's quite big, the room, and even if I'm 182 meters tall, look how easy I am getting in. So I'm now in the back. You can see that this is only a 2-seater. You cannot fit in here 3 people, and the car is quite narrow, 1.1 meter and 66 centimeters wide. But otherwise, let's see, in terms of practicality, what we have. We have 2 cup holders. In the Colt, we had only 1. And there is another storage space here. for your phone, wallet, or I don't know what. And other thing that we have here, and in the Colt we do not have, are some pockets in the back of the seats. But other than that, it's only that. Considering that it's a 3-door car, in terms of practicality, it will get 3 out of 5. In the back, the quality of the materials is the same as in the front, so it will get 3 out of 5. Remember that Fox is only 383 long. And a special characteristic of the Volkswagen models is that they make quite compact cars with a lot of room inside. And this is for Fox too. I'm 182 meters tall, as I said. I put the front seat to the back for me to feel comfortable. And look still how much room I got for my knees. And I will measure this. Let's see. Remember that in the Colt we had 8 centimeters. Let's see how much we have in the Fox. 13 centimeters. So it is much better for sure here in this in regards with the space. We have also big windows. Even if it's a 3-door car, it will get for sure 5 out of 5. The bench, even it's for 2 people only, it's quite comfortable. I think it's very, very comfortable. You can sit well here on a long road. So this bench will get 5 out of 5. You saw how much room there is in the Colt for how short it is. But that room comes with a minus, a big minus. And this is the trunk. Because this is a very small trunk, only 220 liters. Other information were saying something like 168. I don't know what is the truth. I looked for a lot of information, but there were contradictory information. But for how it looks, I think it's 220. 220 liters in this class, it's quite small. So it will get only 2 out of 5. In regards with practicality, there is not much in this trunk. For example, you have something here under where you have the tire repairing kit because it doesn't have a spare wheel, a full spare wheel, and something to put your tools and other stuff. But other than that, it's a quite flat trunk. It's not that bad, you see, because these are the kids' seats. So in terms of practicality, it gets a 3 out of 5. The loading lip, compared to other cars, it's quite small. And it even can become smaller because this car has another shelf here that the owner put it in the house. So he took it out and put it in the house, where you almost have no loading lip. And I have here again my measuring unit to see how big is the loading lip. And we have around 12 centimeters. But compared to other cars in this class, the loading lip is very, very small for a hatchback. And it will get a 5 out of 5. The last subcategory where we talk about the trunk, it's the extra space that you have, around 1000 liters. If you, for example, let's take this out. If you put the seats down, you don't have a completely flat floor. But in order to have a completely flat floor, you will have to go here on the back and raise this seat and then make it like this. Now, you see that again, there is not a floor flat. But this is because I told you that shelf earlier that the owner took it out and put it home. If you put that shelf, you will have a flat floor. But you don't have a flat floor without opening, without raising this seat, and because of this, it will get only 4 out of 5. The trunk. Well, the car, it's small outside and big inside. Small for the B segment, but in the A segment, it's huge. But the trunk, it's huge for this class. It's 260 liters, bigger than the Colt, which is in the B segment, and bigger than any other car in the A segment. So it's a quite big trunk. Of course, there are some things already here. So because it's a huge trunk for this class, it will get a 5 out of 5. Now, in terms of practicality, there is not much here. You don't have any hooks or anything like that. but there is some space here under where, for example, you have your tools and a big spare wheel, which you don't see it nowadays. So this is all the practicality, but because of the spare wheel, it will get 4 out of 5. You know, this is a big trunk, but this trunk is big because it's also deep. And being deep means that it has a huge load lip. I mean, huge. Just, you see it, it's huge. I have my measuring unit. Remember that in the Colt, the load lip was around, if I remember, 12 centimeters. This one is 26, more than double, 1 out of 5. And for the extra space, those 260 liters can be extended to 1000 liter if you do this with the bench, but the bench cannot be split into two. At least you had this as an option, if I remember, in the Fox, but not for this one. You have 2 buttons here, you raise them up, push this down, and here you have a rope, you see it, and you push this rope and then do that. But in order to do that, you need to push the front seat a little bit in the front, so I need to do that first. Oh man. And now you have a minivan, but it's quite hard to do it. So for the extra space and how I do it, only 2 out of 5. Let's talk about the engine of each of these cars. But these cars, before driving them, I'm curious which engine is noisier than the other. So I will have here a tool, so I will measure how many decibels this engine offers when it runs like this. So we have an average of 70 decibels, which is not a noisy engine, but again, it's not very silent either, so it will get a 4 out of 5. Now we are driving the Colt. So in terms of acceleration, this engine of the Colt, of course, because it's more powerful, it gets to 11.1 from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour. I will not test it here because I do not have where to get from 0 to 100 because I'm in the city, but I will test the acceleration like this. See it? It's okay for a 95 horsepower engine. So the engine answers quite fast, as you see. Let's see. It's quite nice, feels sporty. Yeah, but for a 95 horsepower engine, it will get a 3 out of 5. In terms of elasticity of the engine, the Colt has 125 Newton meters power of torque, which you get it at 4,000 RPM. The maximum power of 95 horsepower, you get it at 6,000 RPM. This means that between the maximum torque power and the momentum of the maximum power of the car, you have only 2,000 RPM. This means that the engine is not very elastic. It would have been better to have the full torque power at a lower RPM. And because of this, sometimes the engine feels like it doesn't have enough power, but it has. Just that you need to push it to upper RPM, you know, to push it, to drive it at higher torque speeds, like this, 350, 400. But because this difference is between the maximum torque power and the maximum power of the car, it's quite small, it will get only 2 out of 5. In terms of fuel consumption, we ignore what the producer is saying because those are not true words. You know, in real world, the fuel consumption is different. And this car takes around 9 liters per 100 kilometers in the city if the city is very congested. If the city is not congested, you can get it to, I think, 7.5, maybe 8. And on longer roads, it will get around, you know, longer trips outside of the city. it can get around 6 liters per 100 kilometers. That means that it's a quite good fuel consumption for a petrol engine, naturally aspirated. So it will get a 3 out of 5. Let's see now how noisy is the 1.5 petrol engine of the Fox. So we have an average of only 67 decibels, which is more silent than that in the Colt. So because of this, it will get 5 out of 5. We are now driving the Fox. Let's talk about acceleration. From 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, so I cannot test it either. It's 13 seconds. I cannot test it now, but let's see if it answers. Even if it has 75 horsepower and only 1000 kilograms, the acceleration, it's not that responsive, you know? I mean, even if you push the car to higher RPMs, the acceleration is not that good. If you need it, it will not let you know at the side of the road. But otherwise, it's quite slow, so it will get only 2 out of 5. Regarding the elasticity of the engine, the Fox has 124 Newton meters power of torque. So this is only 1 Newton meter lower than in the Colt. So they are quite the same. Just that in the Colt, remember, you have this maximum torque power at 4000 RPM. In case of the Fox, you have the maximum torque power at only 2750 RPM. So much lower you have the maximum torque power. The maximum power of the car of 75 horsepower, you have it at 5000 RPM. So the difference between the maximum torque power and the maximum power at RPM, it's 2250 RPM, which is bigger than in the case of the Colt. That means that the engine, it's more elastic, and it's very good that it has the maximum torque power at lower RPM. And because of this, it gets 4 out of 5. Regarding the fuel consumption, it has a quite high fuel consumption. For example, in the city, a very congested city like it's Bucharest, it will get you up to 11 to 12 liters per 100 kilometers. And when the city is, let's say, not so congested, in the weekends maybe, it will get you to 9 to 10 liters per 100 kilometers, but you'll not get under 9. On longer trips, for no longer roads outside of the city, you can take it to 6.3, 6.5 liters per 100 kilometers if you keep it in the 5th gear with 80, 90, maximum 100 kilometers per hour. But otherwise, no. So for the fuel consumption, it will get only 2 out of 5 because it has a quite high fuel consumption. Let's see how much noise is in the car when we drive it. I will reset here the So 71, 72 decibels at 50 kilometers per hour. It will get for this noise a 3 out of 5. The gearbox, it's not very good for city driving because it's not easy to maneuver it. It's on the sporty side, and sometimes it's heavy to make the car push it in the 1st or the 2nd gear. See, look. So it's a quite sporty gearbox. If you want to drive sporty and have the rally art version, okay, but I don't like that. Sometimes it gets very hard in the 1st gear. It's not the best gearbox. It feels sporty, I like this, but it's not the best on this side if you want to drive it in the city. And that is why I will give it a 3 out of 5 only. Because Colt is a sporty little hatchback, in terms of feedback that you receive from the steering wheel, it's a very good car. The steering wheel, it feels tight to be sporty, and it answers at every little move. Look, see, you want this? It moves. So it's very responsive for a car like this. That is why on the feedback from the steering wheel, it will get a 5 out of 5. Regarding the comfort, it is a comfortable car. It is a very comfortable car. The seats are very nice. You stay in here very nice, and there is a lot of room around you. So it's a car that it's easy to drive, and you can easily drive it on longer roads without any problems. But it's not perfect, let's say. It's very good, and in the comfort side, it will get a 4 out of 5. I also, have a lot of room for my legs. I like this, so it will get a 4 out of 5. Regarding the interior noise, let's see. I will reset my sound meter. (68-69 decibels, which is much lower than, not much lower, but a little bit lower than the Colt, which had 71-72 decibels. So this car is quieter, more quiet, and because of this, it will get here in the noise a 4 out of 5. The gearbox, like in the case of the Colt, sometimes it's hard to get in the first gear and in the reverse. But otherwise, it's a very nice to drive. It's a very nice gearbox. It's not sporty. You see it. It's very easy to maneuver it. I like this. But because, like in the case of the Colt, it's sometimes hard to get it in the first gear, it will get only 3 out of 5. Regarding the feedback that you get from the steering wheel, I was expect that this car, it will have a very electrically assisted steering wheel. But it's not like that. It responds quite well. Look, for a city car, not that good like in the case of the Colt, because the Colt has a very sporty setting, but much better than I expected. And because of this, it will get a 4 out of 5. Regarding the comfort, here we have a problem. Because it's not like in the Colt, you see, my knee cannot go on the right too much because it will hit the center console. And if you drive this car in the city, you will not feel that too much. But this car has a problem. For example, if I want to have a relaxed leg on the acceleration, I need to push the chair to the back, the seat. But in the same time, it will be hard for me to get to the clutch. If I will put the seat in this position where it's very easy for me to get to the clutch, I don't have a comfortable position with the right leg on the acceleration. And on long roads, longer trips that I made with this car, I had some pains in my leg. On the other side, there were people shorter than me, for example, people that were less than 1.7 meters tall, that felt very good in this car. And they said it's very comfortable for me, for my legs, for everything. But for taller people like me, it's not comfortable, at least on longer roads. In the city, you can cope with it if you don't drive too many hours. But because, tall people do not feel very good here, but shorter people do, I will give it a 3 out of 5. So here we are at the end of this comparison test, and I will give you now the results. Colt was a winner for the interior in the front, 17-14. However, surprisingly, Fox was a winner in the back, 16-13. In the trunk, even if it had a smaller trunk, Colt won because it had some extra things, and it has 14 points to 12 for the Fox. On the engine side, Fox was the winner with 13 points compared to 12 in the case of the Colt. And on driving, Colt was the winner with 15 points to 14 points in case of the Fox. And totally, the winner is Mitsubishi Colt with 71 points out of 100. But Fox, it was quite close, 69 points out of 100. It was closer than I could have expected. But nonetheless, Colt is the winner.